Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coaches on the Couch. This is just a quick introduction for any new listeners out there. Coaches on the Couch explores leadership in the built environment. It's co-hosted by me, Rachel Birchmore, and Louise Rogers. And Louise and I both coach. We also come together to design and deliver leadership development programs for architects, engineers, and other consultants across the built environment. And we do this through Step Up. If you'd like more information on that and how we might be able to work with you or your team, please get in touch. You can see more at stepuplondon.com or drop an email over to rachel@stepuplondon.com. So, on to today's conversation. And we're really pleased today to be talking to Ken Shuttleworth, founder of Make Architects. So let's go right over to that now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Coaches on the Couch. I'm Louise Rogers.
And I'm Rachel Birchmore.
And today we're very excited to be joined by Ken Shuttleworth, founder and director of Make Architects. Hi, Ken, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Nice to be here.
So, Ken, before we get going on our conversation, can you please tell us something brief and interesting about your couch?
Well, when we at Foster's, we won the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank in 1979, and we got sent out to Hong Kong like over a weekend to go and actually work on the project. The bank insisted we all went there. So the team relocated, I think it was about 1981. And we all had flats to be converted in 1981, yeah. And it was, it's very exciting. But what we actually had, we had a budget to buy furniture to Hong Kong because we hadn't got any furniture. So we had flats there, apartments there. And we had a budget at Habitat. And Habitat was like a sort of go-to place in those days, still is in some respects. And we got into, all of us, looking at a couch or sofa, as I would call it, called Burnham. And the Burnham sofa is designed by Terence Conrad, and it's a really big sofa, very luxurious, nice sort of thing. And it was like almost the whole budget was spent on these sofas. And I think about 4 or 5 of us all bought these sofas and shipped them to Hong Kong. And they lived in Hong Kong for the whole of the life of the bank. And then at the end of that, we shipped them back to the
back.
Yeah, and in fact, I bought one of the guys didn't want it, so I bought his as well. So I've got 2 of them. I've still got them today, and the photograph you'll see that's the photograph of the couch.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad we asked.
Brilliant. Yeah,
that's a brilliant couch story.
And the Burnham is a very famous design, and Sophie, Terence Conrad's daughter's bought out another version of it, a smaller version of it, which I think is also called the Burnham. She bought it out in the last couple of years, so it's still, a classic. It's huge. It's very luxurious. It sort of sinks a bit because of the amount of feathers that have been crushed over the years. And the other funny story is when I bought a little house in London, and I couldn't get it in the house. I couldn't get up the stairs, so I sawed the back off it with a tenon saw, and I folded one arm in, and I managed to carry it upstairs on my back in
wow.
two goes. So then I reassembled it at the top. So it's like it has been and it's been moved from there now. So it's basically already been chopped in half and rebuilt, and but it's still.
Well, I think it's a testament to the craftsmanship of Habitat, actually, not just the design, but the craftsmanship. Anyway, we should move on, but that was fantastic. So I'm not sure how much of an introduction you need, really, but let's pull out some key points. You've worked on some of the most groundbreaking architectural landmarks, including Swiss Ray Tower, City Hall, Millennium Bridge, More London in London, and Hong Kong International Airport. And you founded Make in 2004, following nearly 30 years at Foster's, where you were a director. There are now, as you say, makers, and I'm doing the quote marks, in London, Hong Kong, and Shanghai, providing architectural, interior, and urban design services.
Such an illustrious career, Ken. I wonder if you could just share with us a few of maybe some of the lesser known moments, things that were highlights for you that people might not have heard from you before.
I suppose over the 50 years, so 30 years with Norman and 20 years with Make, so I've done 50 years. so far. It's still going. I mean, there's been lots of amazing moments. I mean, I think some of the lesser known ones are some of the more hairy moments, I suppose, that where you get into trouble. Like I built a room. In the early days of Foster's, we didn't have computers, of course, and when I started, we didn't have computers. So we used to draw on big sheets of paper and or tracing paper. And there's a room in a project I worked on where I was doing the petition package, and it went across the joint in the paper. So I had half the room on one side of the paper, the other half of the room on the other side of the paper. And it got built without a door because there wasn't a door drawn on the room. So you had this room you couldn't get into. So that was less well known. But I mean, I think that's the problem when you're coordinating on bits of paper, and when bits of paper come together, not necessarily always match.
I love that.
I suppose the most terrible one was when before I worked at Foster's, I worked for a firm in Birmingham. I worked for two small firms in Birmingham back in the mid-70s. And I started doing one drawing of a building and looking at details and things, obviously, when I was younger. And I started drawing them at half full size. So you just take the drawing and you start drawing things out at half full size. You get more on the paper and it's quicker to draw. And this company just stopped me dead, halfway through this drawing. Says, you can't draw it half full size. You got to draw it full size or 1:5. I never really understood. And then about a year later, I found out that they'd done a whole project where all the details of the doors and windows had been drawn half full size. And they all got delivered to site, and all the doors are 3 foot high.
Oh, wow.
The whole building had been built. All the joinery had all been manufactured at half.
Common sense doesn't seem to have prevailed in these decisions, really, does it? It's like the drawing was king rather than common sense. Actually, looking at a 3 foot door and thinking, not sure that that's quite right.
Yeah, but they built them, so
But they built them.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I mean, I love that they're early moments too. For some of our early career listeners, it'll maybe give them heart that it's okay to make mistakes.
Well, people do make mistakes. I mean, normally you cover them up.
Yeah.
You learn how to sort of, get around them or work around them.
So I don't expect you to remember this, Ken, but back in 2004, I was working at a project management company called Bureau 4, and they're another example of an early employee-owned business. And I remember you coming to chat to the guys over at Bureau 4 about, I guess, to pick brains and to share some thoughts around some of the early decisions that you were making. To not be eponymous was one. It's one of the first architectural practices I remember not being named after its founders. And also just to bounce around this idea of employee owned and how that works. And I guess, there's lots of threads that we'd like to weave into the conversation today, but those early decisions and the impacts of being employee owned over time, I guess, are central to the conversation.
I mean,
we started to work with the decision not to be eponymous, because I think at the time it seems odd now with all, the names that are out there, but at the time it was quite radical not to be Shuttleworth Associates.
I mean, I was really keen on that from the beginning. I didn't really, I never really liked my name anyway, I suppose, there's a reality. But I think it's really important for a studio to actually be able to acknowledge people who actually work there. So, if you've got your name on the door and everybody's working for you, then they don't really get credit for what they do. So it's much easier, to say, this is a building by Matt Bugg, he's a partner at Make, than it is to say, it's Mark Shuttleworth, because I think it just always becomes a, people want to see the name, they want to see the leader, they want to see the boss. If you go to meetings, especially in Europe, they'd expect to see the founder of the company if he's got his name on the door. And if it hasn't, it's much easier, I think, to sort of not to do that. And also, if I go under a bus, you don't lose the brand. And I think that's the when people do have when they lose the brand, they go to initials, which is often meaningless series of initials.
Yeah.
And I think it's much easier not to, to start off without my name on it. And also it gives all the other people more freedom, I think, to, to be themselves. And I think, so for me, that was quite important. They did try and talk me out of it. So I went to see Brian Boylan at Wolf Owens about the branding, and he was very sure it had to be Shuttleworth,
Really?
Completely mad. But I managed to talk him out of it. And I said, I want an abstract brand. And I went through the thesaurus, as everybody does, comes up with names. And you see names that now appear like ADAS and Populous sort of come up on the thesaurus. But I never came up with Make. And I spent, come up with 4,000 names, none of which were Make. And it was Brian who came up, or Brian's team at Wolf Owens came up with Make. And it was like, wow, that is fantastic. At the time, because there was nobody else had that. There was a firm called Make Architecture Design who were actually not really architects, they were designers, and they were making art objects, things like that. There was a Make Limited as well. And they kept getting loads of phone calls, trying to find us. So we ended up buying them out, buying their company. But Make Limited, we managed to get that as a makelimited.com, makearchitects.com. Nobody else had done it, so it was, it actually really fell into place. And the fact we make buildings, as simple as that.
No, it's lovely, and it's lovely that it's such a short, sharp word as well.
Yeah.
There's something about the simplicity of a four-letter word. Was it linked to the EOT idea?
Yeah, so the biggest issue I think in architects' offices is that you get somebody who has a name on the door and basically takes away all the money. And actually, what I was very keen to do was to spread the money around to make sure people benefited from their work, or from the profitability of the company. So my idea was to try and spread it. And I went to see a lawyer about this with Barry, and they said, no, you've got to set up a company, you've got to be in your name, because that's, what the Treasury want. They want your money, they want tax on the capital. Tax on the company. And I said, well, there's got to be a way of doing it. I don't want to do that. And they went off and came back about 3 weeks later and said, it's actually John Lewis. I said,
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So, all the shares, 100% of the shares are in trust. For the benefits of the employees. And you imagine it like a box, and all the shares are in this box, and the box is in the corner of a room, but there's no door on the box. You can't get in the box, nobody can get hold of any shares. And then they just sort of sit there, and it's just, it's irrelevant. But what is relevant is that nobody owns us except ourselves. We are taking control of our own destiny. We're not beholden to shareholders. Not somebody trying to rake all the money off the top. So, for me, the EOT thing was just a natural thing to do. And many architects have come to see us. In a way, I probably did go.
Sure. Yeah.
Say, how do you do it? Because they're getting their staff saying, well, Make have done it, why can't we do it? They all see the benefits of it. People who've left here and gone to other companies, want to come back sometimes because they can't understand why they're not all employee owned.
Well, I'll ask about that sort of cultural shift, because coming as you did from Foster's, and I'm not wishing to cast aspersions on Foster's at all, but what sort of shifts in your leadership did you have to make in order to be leading an EOT rather than an eponymous?
I think it comes out of respect. I think yes, I can draw. Yes, I come on loads of ideas all the time. I sort of, I knew a lot of people at the time because I've been doing it for 30 years. So I think there was a lot of respect towards me from the staff and people who, come to work for us. And I think that's just continued, really. I mean, there's no, I don't rule it with an iron fist. I don't go around shouting at people. We don't have showdowns or pin-ups that, tear people apart. It's very much a sort of family organization. We're very friendly towards each other, and things happen by discussion and debate. And we just go with the best idea. If somebody's got a good idea, we just go with that. So it doesn't have to be my idea. It can be somebody else's idea, and that's fantastic. If it's better than mine or better than somebody else's, we just go with the best one. And that becomes a scheme. So, we're just always looking to move forward with the best ideas. So I think that sort of exploration side of, the way I work, the way we work is important. There's never that, you don't sort of stand still and say, we've got it. This is our style. We're going to just keep doing this time and time again. It's always moving on, always something different. I think, the management of it is, it's I suppose respect is, is the word. It comes out of us working together for many years. Some of the people who came to join us, I'd been working with before at Foster's. So I've been with some of them for 10 years already, some longer actually. There's been a sort of groundswell of people who, who just love being makers and stay, which is great.
That's great. And how did you manage that? Well, early growth, particularly when I can imagine there were clients and people who wanted to come and work with you.
Yeah, I mean, we did it completely based on income. So the more income we got, the more people we employed. You've got to relate the income to the number of people. There's always got to be tied.
Of course, yeah.
And once
it must be quite rapid.
Yeah,
there must be a danger rapid.
Yeah, was it that rapid? I mean, we went, I suppose we doubled every couple of weeks, but we got about 50 or 60. It sort of stabilized for a while, and it went up again. We never went above 200. We were about 100. Before 2008, we were about 180 people, I think, 190.
Right.
So it wasn't that rapid. And we had people who wanted to come, who were like waiting for the phone call, and I didn't phone anybody. They just kept phoning me.
Sure.
So it just built up over time, and then we started to employ people, as we got the work. So I think it's you can't just set up and with a load of people and hope work's going to come in. You've got to
of course.
To the income. Some clients, were very generous. They paid us, in advance before we did some work. So we never borrowed any money. We did it all on positive cash flow. So I didn't take any money out for 6 months. Everybody who came didn't take a salary for 3 months. And then at the end of 3 months, we paid them back. And at the end of 6 months, I paid myself back. So we had positive people coming, for no money effectively to start with. They did 12.
Leap of faith then for some people joining from.
They did 3 months without a salary, but then they did get it back. So it's important that. There was a leap of faith in that, but I think there was that spirit of adventure, and it's all new, and setting us up. People very keen to work with us. So like a Derwent, they wouldn't work. We're at Foster's because it was too big, but they would definitely work with us at Make. So there were like clients I'd known who I'd worked with before who came, and clients who came who we hadn't actually worked for, but they knew who we were and what we did.
And I guess Derwent must have been at a similar stage of their own evolution at the time.
Yeah, I mean, they do. Right? Yes, I suppose they were. They were. We did one of their first brand new buildings. They normally do professional work at that point. When we did 80 Charlotte Street, that we ended up basically doing a new building for that. That was a journey with them over time as well. But clients who came. Craig Marks, as Louise would know, he came very early on, and he's still a client today. He comes every now and again. He pops up with.
Say hello from me.
Yeah. He was one that put his faith in us. Andrew Reynolds, who was at Hines at the time, he keeps popping up as well. There's, we were quite faithful to our early clients, very grateful for what they did. They actually helped us out. We never lost sight of that. We never become too grand to, say.
Just to pick up on something you said earlier, Ken, you said that sometimes people left and then they went elsewhere and found that they didn't get that same sense. Maybe it was a sense of belonging, I don't know, somewhere else because of not being an EOT. How would you describe what it was they came back to experience more of?
I think they enjoy the family atmosphere, and there's nobody shouting and screaming at them, and there's nobody taking all the money out. It's basically it's I can't think of the right word for it. I mean, it's not a kibbutz. We don't run it like a kibbutz. It actually is managed very properly. Totally from there's 4 directors at the top. We manage it very properly. There's a whole set of senior people. It is actually properly managed. It's not, it's not a free for all.
No, of course.
Proper company with directors. Everything's in place as properly what we need, and it's very successful for that. But I think there's still that feeling that because the ownership is with everybody, there's a great feeling that it's their company. And any money we don't spend, we give back to the makers. So if you don't fly first class, you don't go in a taxi, you don't do anything like that, because it's basically your money. Because if we don't, everything we don't spend goes back. So you get a multiplier on salary, just the same as John Lewis.
Yeah.
And that's a profit share you get each year if you make it.
And Ken, does being employee owned have an impact on how you recruit?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm looking for people who are going to be team players who, want to be a member of the team and work with other people. Anybody who, thinks their name should be on the door, should be a director after 5 minutes, or, wants to boss people about and not actually do any work, I suppose. We don't tend to employ those. So yeah, I still pretty much interview everybody. I mean, we have, interviewed teams that interview people, then I do the final interview. And really looking for chemistry, I think, at that point. Somebody's going to fit in and not disrupt the apple cart and not try and upset everybody. So yeah, I think it does have an impact. I think you need people who are collaborative and enjoy working and enjoy architecture. Anybody who doesn't enjoy architecture doesn't come. Anybody who's not interested in trying to save the planet doesn't come. It's sort of, there is a typical maker you see, like I think occasionally, yeah, definitely going to be a maker, sort of thing. So I think yes, I think it does. The people we employ, I think, are some of the best people in the world. Just fantastic people.
I've just had another memory actually, Ken, because your studio used to have all the models that were produced in your studio in the windows, didn't they? I mean, I know that seems quite common now, but at the time it was one of the places I went where the making side of architecture was very much on display, because you had the model shop within the studio rather than commissioning people outside to do that. And my son, when he was 15, came to do work experience.
Oh yes, I remember.
He's 31 now, so
presumably not doing architecture.
No, he's not actually. No, that dream didn't come true, but no, he's an academic.
We didn't put him off. No, I think, a lot of architects, they behind closed doors, and they sort of close the door. They don't want people to see what they're doing. I think it's a bit mad, really, because it's great to sort of show what you're doing. Obviously, we keep out the windows, but yeah, we've got a display on at the moment, celebrating 20 years of Make. As you come into the building, there's models everywhere. The machines are turning away on the ramp as you come down the ramp. So I think there's definitely a feeling that we are showing people what we do rather than hiding it.
Louise and I work with a lot of EOTs, and often these are sort of employee-owned businesses that perhaps started being as founder-led businesses, and they've transitioned across. And some of them really struggle to articulate the benefits to their teams and sort of explain how it's going to work in terms of decision making and increased input and contribution to how the business is run. How do you articulate that?
I mean, I think some people do think they can start, joining committees and telling everybody what to do. I think there is an element of that. I mean, most of the architects who've come to see me, or companies come to see me, tend to be people who, they've got shares in the company. They want to realize those shares, or they want to convert to employee because they want to give it to anybody else, but they want to get their money out. And I think that's always a sort of sticking point is, how do you get your money out if you're going to go employee owned? And I always say, just forget the money. It's not important. What's important is the people. But they don't always see that. So a lot of them have got 50-50, where they've half of it as employee, but they've kept their shares.
You think that compromises the whole philosophy of employee ownership?
Yeah, I think it's just, for us, we've never, which has always been 100%. And but I think it's, giving half of it away and keeping the other half is a bit mad, really. But that's what a lot of people have done, because they want to, want someday somebody to come along and buy them out and give them millions of pounds for their shares. I mean, the value is just the people. There's the only value of an architect's office, or any professional services body, really, is the people. Without, we might have a few computers and a few model making machines and things and a few pencils, but at the end of the day, that's worth nothing. It's the people that's important. So for me, it's encouraging the best people to come and stay and to work to the best of their abilities. The employee ownership model allows them to do that without fear or favour.
I'm curious because Rachel and I have talked quite often, had conversations with people about multi-generational workspaces, and I'm going to word this very carefully, Ken, but
72, yeah.
There must be people who are 3 generations below you now working within your practice, and I'm wondering what differences you notice and what the benefits or otherwise are of this multi-generational workforce, which is a really sort of 21st century phenomenon, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good 50 years between top and bottom in this place. But I think what's nice is the mix of people who are, built loads of buildings, who know what they're doing, got a lot of experience, and people who come in, straight off the street, who've been at university for 2 or 3 years, and, but they are totally computer literate. I mean, they are, working with the computers. They've been brought up on PlayStations and, know exactly what to do with the machine. Whereas, my generation, we still, as I still am, using a pencil. So I think there's a big difference between sort of analog and digital. A lot of the youngsters can't draw. They really can't. They don't, never taught to draw. In fact, they don't hold a pencil. They just, everything's on a keyboard, but they are plugged into that keyboard. Some of them are just, literally the keyboard and them are sort of like one thing somehow. The way they work
it like from their brain into the
watching a sort of pianist or something, something incredible. They're using the keyboard as if it's just another an access into their thinking straight onto the machine. So in no way do I think it's inferior to drawing a pencil. It's it's the same thing, it's just different.
No.
I think as an architect you have to as an architect we adapt all the time. And I think as a profession, it's in the last 50 years, it's gone from drawing boards to computers. It's been a massive issue, massive change. And I think the next 50 years will be interesting. There's some computers presumably to AI and whatever's beyond that. So I think as architects, we have to keep always adapting. You can't just say, we're not going to use. Remember, people did say, when computers came in, we never use those. We don't need any of that stuff. And I remember saying at one point, everybody's going to want one of these on their desk at some point, and everybody just laughed at me. Stupid. And there were people who resisted it, and there were some jobs that were done in computers, and and there's some jobs drawn by hand, and it was like trying to get an extra fee for using the computer. So all that is obviously, but it was a massive change. When they came, a bit like, I suppose, if you were a fireman on a steam locomotive, and your job was shoveling coal, and suddenly diesel electric came in, suddenly out of a job. And I think that's sort of, in a way, what people felt.
The fear.
They come up through drawing. Basically, most of us, my generation, came through art and the fact we could draw. And I think that's, that fact that was all going to disappear, I think was always a fear for people. But I've always embraced it, as we embrace AI at the moment. You've just got to keep moving and just get the best out of it. So, I do sketches all the time. Guys photograph them, with their phones, and they go into the computer and start, playing around with it and come back with something better. So yeah, I think it's, I think the multi-generational thing works. I mean, I think the attitudes are interesting. The older guys are very happy to work day and night, 7 days a week if necessary. The younger guys are much more balanced about how they feel about doing that. And it's obviously, in my early days of Foster's, you just used to work 7 days a week because it was great. You just loved doing it. It was fantastic, and it was warm, and it was warm in the office. You haven't got any heating at home, it was great. I think nowadays there's much more balanced. People, spend a lot more time on leisure and doing other things other than just art. I think that
can be a real point of frustration, can't it, in both directions? Are there things that you found work to manage that?
No, we just go with the flow on it. People. We just, there's no way of changing. People want to do it. Some people, dedicated to working to get the project out the door. See it more as I suppose a job. I mean, I think that's the difference. In my day, it was, it was like all encompassing. This is the only thing you did. You didn't do anything else. You didn't go out. You just went into the office and worked. Met my wife through work. You just. What else would where else are you going to meet anybody? Just basically working all the time. And I think in architecture there's so much to learn as well. You just, you never stop learning. So that just carried on all the time.
I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking maybe that's one of the things that sets an entrepreneur such as yourself apart is that ability to be adaptable and flexible and not judgmental, really, about changes that are happening in people or in workplace technology, whatever. And the people say, oh, well, back in my day. And I think that that's applicable also to this thing about younger generations wanting to have, in many ways, a healthier work-life balance. Being able to recognize that that's not an indicator of their lack of commitment is a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think in my day, if you flaked out, you were sort of out, really. You just had to keep. I don't think anybody talked about things like well-being, or never heard the word, or mental health issues, anything like that. Nobody worried about any of that. You just did it. And it was just get on with it. And, just don't be daft if you're feeling a bit under the weather, just, it's work even harder. So it was like, but I don't think it was, it wasn't, I don't think people really knew some of these things were a problem,
No.
I mean, actually, I remember one thing at Foster's where at one point we had a white ceiling and it was going yellow. And I remember Birkin saying, one day we're going to find out there's a problem here, there's something killing us all. And of course it was nicotine.
Smoke,
nobody at the time realized, I don't think, that this is bad for you.
That's a bit of a metaphor, isn't it? A metaphor for life.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Working 24 hours, working 18 hours a day, it wasn't to be bad, it was just considered to be what you did. I think we're now more aware of these things that, alcohol, cigarettes, all these things that affect your health, and obviously working, yourself to death as well isn't great.
Absolutely. I feel like we're coming to the end of the time, which is really disappointing because I feel like we all feel like we could carry on. But I'm just wondering, employee ownership seemed like quite a visionary response on your part, Ken, to whatever was happening 21 years ago in society or architecture. And I wonder, when you look at the way that architecture and society is changing now, how you think architects should actually now be evolving.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of a business proposition, it's still great to sort of recognize the people you've got and try and make them feel part of it. So I haven't come up with a better version of employee ownership. It's still it's still good for us. It still worked for us. I don't think there's any reason, not to do it. It encourages the best people to come and join you, encourages them to stay. People, do benefit directly from actually being part of employee-owned business. Unless something comes up with a better model, then we could move to that one. I mean, we did B Corp as well. We went to a B Corp.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So that we felt that was like the next step beyond employee ownership. So we've done that, been successful in that. I think it's it's just continuing to be, I suppose, a good citizen and a good employer. So people actually want to come and work for you, and to benefit from it. And I think the branding, going back to sort of Make, it's much better for people to say I'm a partner at Make than I'm so and so, some associate at some with a name on the practice. So for me, I think it's still a good way to go. I mean, I haven't heard of anybody come up with anything better. So at the moment, just keep going with employee ownership.
Great, wonderful.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Come to each other in person again one day before too long. I don't think you and Rachel should leave it another 21 years either.
No, anytime you
That's
like.
Brilliant.
Just drop in and see us.
Yeah, thank you.
Will do. Yeah, thanks so much, Ken.
Okay, thank you. Take care.